Iowa's now the first state to remove civil rights protections for transgender people.
Biological differences impact safety, fairness, and competition.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, except for transgender people. Representatives, this bill makes a mockery of both our pledge and our state motto. It is not justice to deny someone shelter simply because they are a transgender person.
Liberal Democrats who once championed women's rights, who helped forge women's sports and Title IX and all of these issues are now perfectly okay with erasing women. The discrimination is happening now, ladies and gentlemen.
Representative Dunwell.
Aye. The bill passed out of the committee in a 13-8 vote.
What they do to you? What they do to you? Not what they do to you? What they do to you? What they do to you? Tell me!
We pride on race building cake. Our liberties we pride.
I'll go right now.
Our liberties we pride.
I'll be open and ready.
It's super scary. The political climate is terrifying to me, and I really hope that we elect Kamala Harris and get this turned around very soon. It really sucks that Donald Trump, a fascist Nazi, was elected into office, but the one thing I will say is that as scary and horrible as this administration is for our communities have no choice but to stick together and be strong to resist and combat fascism. I know a lot of people say that they're not proud of this country or to be an American, but what I will say is I'm proud to be in the resistance in America.
Oh God. Being queer is a revolution, and being able to just exist is important. And so there are a lot of people existing and being, but there are also people who are even marginalized within being gay, like myself as a trans person. I've got an edge, you know, I'm on edge because as both being here in Iowa, with them having removed gender identity as a part of the Civil Rights Code, and then with so much anti-trans legislation coming down the pike from both the state of Iowa and from larger sources, it's a little scary because you don't know what's gonna happen. And the unknown is frightening. So the best thing that I can do is to continue to exist and keep fighting because, you know, I put my feet on the floor in the morning and it's an act of revolution.
Most people want to be safe. They want a safe place to live. They want stability for themselves and their family and community. And so a lot of these policies are not Iowan. And I think that that's a helpful thing to remember because it can help you stay in this fight. It can help you stay optimistic if you remember that these laws, these policies are not us and we can still fight them.
And if I somehow magically have kids and then gotta go through this same bullshit, I'm coming down and I'm smiting people. Because, nope. More and more community members are sharing the needs and donating to the needs and things like that. I feel like I see a lot more people at like Common Love pop-ups and things like that. So it feels like the community is meeting each other where they need it, which is super great because as of July 1st, we don't have rights, bitch.
I think like the summer of 2018, when I started having feelings about my gender identity, struggling with some gender dysphoria, and really needed an outlet to kind of help with those feelings. And drag ended up being that outlet for me. I think it's been an amazing journey being able to explore myself as a person, as a trans, non-binary, gender fluid person with drag. I love being able to be masculine and feminine, and sometimes both at the same time.
Together for our hometown favorite, Miss Nella Deville.
Iowa has been becoming a more and more red state. I've lived in Iowa my entire life, and it started off to be pretty, I would say, equal when I was a kid, very 50-50. And it's just getting more and more red. I think one of the things you asked me last time was, what would I say to Kim Reynolds? And I said, retire. And she is, so that's a success, but I'm terrified of Randy Feenstra. We are a mess in Des Moines and across the state of Iowa. We are sniping at each other and criticizing each other and downplaying each other and gatekeeping, and I don't want to go out. I only go out if I'm in a show, and I don't recruit myself to be in shows a lot. I'm just not that interested. There are some wonderful things happening, but more often than not, there are things that I just don't want to be a part of, and it makes me very sad.
Well, I grew up in Des Moines, and so I've seen it change a lot since I came out in high school. I've been out for about 15 years, so really have seen kind of the long path of what organizing here looks like. But I would say that in the past few years, it's important to note that Iowa had a red wave, long before the Trump presidency of 2024. And so what we were seeing was increased attacks on our community at the Capitol. And so I think alongside that, I've seen an increased awareness from community members that being active and engaged and fighting anti-LGBTQ bills, but also fighting for a better Iowa is really important. I think the other thing that's interesting, and maybe just specific to my point of view, is that I do think that the really incredible organizing in 2020 with the BLM protests also gave rise to an understanding of mutual aid in Des Moines that we maybe did not see as much historically. And so that's also where a lot of my perspective comes from, because I saw people not only get engaged with protesting, but also create new systems to support folks. So because of my work with the BLM protests and Des Moines Mutual Aid and things like that, I was able to found the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund, which is now a process and an organization that helps support people when we lose things like Medicaid for trans, gender affirming care, and things like that too. So that's that's a part of my perspective that's a little bit different than it was, 10 years ago.
I don't want to work for somebody who is fine with me not being able to be married to my husband or do exist, be alive. I'm on Medicaid now. I found a doctor. Cool. First thing she said was, I'm not going to help you with any gender affirming care. I don't know anything about it, and you can find somebody else that does that. But I feel, judging by the way she acted during my appointment, feels like that was just the nicest she could say it without me being well, I'm going to report you.
People think me just reading a book to kids should be a crime. I think that is horrific, but it has even affected me even worse as a queer person because I am a trans man, and especially with Planned Parenthood being defunded, getting my hormones, getting the gender affirming care that I want and need is nearly impossible in the state of Iowa.
There's all these drag performers are grooming children and stuff like that, but are we? Because the last 17 articles I've seen have not been anybody who's even been queer or even kind of associated with our community. But you know who they have been associated with? The people that want us to not exist. So.
I am not gay. I never have been gay.
For the first time in U.S. history, a convicted felon will sit in the Oval Office.
At the bottom of the photos, comments from Tennessee's own Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. The comments range from using heart and fire emojis to comments like loving it and you can turn a rainy day into rainbows and sunshine. Some call the comments hypocritical, pointing to McNally's voting record of supporting some bills critics say target the LGBTQ community. He told us Thursday he does not support gay marriage.
The one thing I will say about the Trump era is that it has exposed the ugliness that still exists in this country. I think that was kind of scabbed over and not really paid attention to, and we thought that things were better than they were. And we have discovered that ugliness and that evil is still lurking very strongly. Well, it's not even lurking anymore. It has reared its ugly head.
There are people here in the state that are not giving up and that are going to continue to fight. I have no intention of leaving the state. I believe that we can be better, and my impact, at least in this current moment, the impact I want to leave is that folks know that they're really not alone and that we're not going to let them do this without a fight.
I didn't learn drag from cis men doing drag. I learned how to do drag from trans women. And so, I've been in circles sometimes where people are like, well, you look like a real girl. You look like this and blah, blah, blah. And then it dawned on me later that in both finding my identity and realizing who taught me how to do what it is that I do, I'm like, of course I do, dummy. I learned from girls how to do it. Someone asked me when the first time I saw a particular queen. I had to be about 16, 17 years old, and the very first queen that I ever saw was on TV, and it was legendary, my drag great-grandma. It was Chili Pepper, who was the first Miss Continental. She recently passed away. I remember the first time I saw her, it was on the Donahue show. And it clicked in my brain then and there that I could be something else.
If you need to move away, please do that. You do need to do what's best for you and your safety. But I always say, but if you feel inclined to come back, we'd love to have you back. We'd love to have you come back and lead the next generation. So it's really, right now for me, what's pushing my drive is the fight for the students. Like when you're doing drag, you don't need to fit in a box. Drag doesn't necessarily need to be binary.
At one point in time, I was the advisor for the Garden's All Ages show. We had to cancel the show for a while because we weren't sure how the laws were going to affect the kids.
Some lawmakers want to make it illegal to bring minors to drag shows. Under House Study Bill 158, violators would be charged with a felony. The bill also lets parents or guardians to sue for damages and bans state-funded entities from hosting drag shows.
Nobody would have been able to sustain that. Was it an overreach? God, yes.
If they're going to come after my marriage, whose marriage are they going to come after next? If they're going to come after my sexuality as being discriminated against, who are they going to come across next?
Last year, I definitely said, oh, I love Iowa. Because I grew up in South Dakota, which is significantly more red because Iowa used to be a swing state. It's significantly better than when I lived in South Dakota because I grew up in South Dakota, but it's gotten worse.
And it's really hard to love a place that doesn't love you back, to fight this fight that's often a losing battle right now. And so that was really challenging to, lose that part of my experience as a trans Iowan. But also, I am no longer able to access the same things. I had luckily changed my birth certificate before the law went into effect, but I'm gonna go try to change my driver's license, and I don't know if that's gonna take. Also within my work as a gender doula, and within my work at the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund, and our direct service work at One Iowa, I'm just talking to dozens of people every week about all the things they're losing, all the things that they no longer have, and they are also coming to grips with an Iowa that doesn't love them back, and that is really, really deeply, it's just deeply heavy.
It's easier to stay with the familiar and function within the familiar than it is to take the chance and move somewhere else and hope that it works.
I don't see politicians as these saviors. I don't see us oh, we have to flip all these seats and then things are just going to be good again. I don't think it works like that. You know, I'm more of a big fan of our mutual aids, like helping our community members get the direct need and assistance that they need right away, like the Trans Mutual Aid Fund, Des Moines Mutual Aid. And we have a lot of great organizations that do that. I think I've seen a lot of community members flee the state just with a lot of the legislation that's been passed recently. But I think within like the drag community, I've seen a lot of like camaraderie. I think that's been really great. You know, I'm not a performer that's shied away from doing like more political performances. I mean, drag is innately political at its center, at its core, and it always should be. So I think like we're doing what we can and what we can to survive right now. And I'm grateful that I have like the community members that I do, and like my partner is amazing. So, but it's definitely been hard.
I was watching everybody protest both the drag bill and other things. Here's a very honest perception. It's the first time that white people have been told no. They've never been on the chopping block. I've always said that white people have often been afraid of laws because they feared that minorities and marginalized people might treat them the way that they've been treated. I remember being in the Capitol watching everybody protest the civil rights, the removal of civil rights. And there was a point where everybody's screaming, they're yelling, it's up and down. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Iowa State troopers walk past me. And I looked at the group of people that I was with and I went, it's time to go. And it was because I grew up with members of my family who had been alive and who had fought civil rights battles and things like that. And at that point, it was like, nah, this isn't safe. Let me get the hell out of Dodge. And that's what I did. And then I'm watching the aftermath. And then a few weeks later, I was able to speak with One Iowa at the rally at their LGBTQ rally on the Hill. And I said that. I literally said, you know, this is the first time some of you have been told no. This is the moment where all of the things that they don't want you to learn in a book about the civil rights movement and peaceful protesting and all of these things. I said, this is the moment where all of the things that they don't want you to learn, you need to open up some books and you need to learn it. And I will still stand on that. You know, I think people need to understand that, particularly in the state of Iowa, I'm a minority within a minority within a minority. You know, Black people are 4.5% of the state population. Now take that 4.5 and add the 10% that's supposed to be LGBTQ or gay/lesbian, and then break that down one more time to whatever the percentage of that is supposed to be trans. Hell, myself being in the Capitol might have been all of the Black trans people in the entire state of Iowa in one room at the same time. You know, I think that's it. Because I'm a Black person who is also a queer person, all I can do is keep living. Because that visibility lets people go, okay, if she can do it, let me put my shoes on and let me do it too.
This could be applicable for a lot of people that are running for office or are currently in office. But I think what I would say is that Iowa has an incredibly special history, and Iowa can be a wonderful place for folks to live. We've never been a perfect state. Of course, in our history, there's so much that we've fought and won. We talk so often also about the fact that the state has always been transphobic. It's always been homophobic. It's always been very racist. It's always been xenophobic. Like, I think I don't paint over that history, but to those folks that are in any kind of elected office, I want them to know that I'm not going to forget the history of what LGBTQ folks have had in Iowa. And I want them to know that I'm not going to let things slip past. And I'm not going to lower my standards for an amazing state just because they have some kind of policy or initiative that's important to them, I'm not going to lower my standards to meet the new bar that they're trying to set that dehumanizes people and makes our state worse and less safe. So my standards say high because I really believe in our state.
Existence is like suffocating when you're at all of these intersections of existence, and then living in Iowa, and then like the people that represent you are like, I'd rather see you die, but like not even just like a quick and painless, which still would suck, but like I feel like I'm getting the life squeezed out of me. And I just gotta wake up every day and be like, all right, here we go, try again. So like, I feel like if karma's real, it's coming hard. But even if it isn't, like, I still think like, how shitty of a human being can you be? You know what I mean? The paychecks you get, are they really worth the lives lost?
If you can do anything with your life, be kind. I read it, and I just posted this on Facebook not even half an hour ago. I read a quote that said, ending hate starts with yourself. If you live, you got me all worked up again. If you live your life from a place of love and a place of respect, you're automatically making the world better. Unfortunately, I feel that there are people out there that are triggered. They're on, like, perched and ready to be angry. I understand activism, and I understand, I get so angry at things that are happening around me. If all you're looking for is the bad around you, you're not looking for the good. And if you're not projecting the good around you or in you, then you're not going to be able to affect people in a good way.
We can't just keep ducking our heads down and hoping for the best. Has that worked? By keeping our heads down, has that worked in the last 100 years, 200 years? No. So break out of the cycle.
Don't forget what you said about trans people. Let me play on the boys' basketball team. It's not that deep. I promise I don't have an advantage for having a nice fat ass. Please just do the right thing. Make sure trans Iowans are a top priority to you, and care about all your constituents. We're all Iowans at the end of the day, and no Iowan deserves to be treated less than just because they're queer. And I really hope you're going to do the right thing and help put an end to the horrific atrocities that are going on in our state.
To Kim Reynolds, I would say you are an absolute idiot. You are a complete and total joke and degenerate who threw away so many things because you leaned into racism, you leaned into misogyny, you leaned into homophobia, transphobia. If there is an ist or ism, you leaned right into it. Honestly, I think if given the chance, you would round up any and everybody who was not white and from a small town anywhere in this state, and you would be perfectly okay harming them. Babies, listen, live your best life. It is not going to be easy. You are going to have some things that are going to get in your way. Adapt, adjust. Fight for your freedoms, because if you don't fight, who will? It is a part of your job to be the shoulders for the next generation to stand on. I love you.
Talking all that shit. Talking all that fire, the only one in hell. You wanna know what's between my legs? Boy, I bet you wanna know how sweet this body tastes. Don't look so heavy while your heaven stay away. But I bet you wanna know who I am now today. Well, I'm a who are you? Stay who my boo. Stay man, who are you? I'm a who. Polynesian queers come to serve, not serve for the gods. I am everyone, one of one. Let's have some fun. Talking all the shit, wasting all my time.
We're not going down without a fight.
Peppa Pig, thank you.